features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
And there's nothing wrong with looking at the sunrise for a second time this morning. Isn't that just absolutely beautiful? It's really good to be back on safari with you all today, and this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live. Good morning, and I hope that you enjoyed that sunrise. We're going to actually try and get another little look at it again, but for now the tree is quite thick and it's making a little bit difficult for us to see it. But anyways, my name is Taylor, and on camera with me this morning we've got Jean-Dre, and I cannot tell you how good it is to be back in the African wilderness with my Wild Earth family, who I've missed very, very much. It's been a long holiday, and well, yes, I'm very excited to be back. And poor Louise this morning had to bear with my screeching as I saw all the little impala lambs for the first time this morning, and heard the woodlands kingfisher calling for the first time as well. It seems as though so much has changed in the last 2 weeks since I have been gone. Now, remember, we are on a live safari show, so if you'd like to chat to us or interact with myself and Jamie, and I think Brent will be joining us a little bit later for a walk, you're welcome to either hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can even send us an email, questions@WildEarth.tv. Yeah, the sun seems to be slightly better. Isn't that amazing? And Jean-Dre and I were worried this morning that we were going to miss the sunrise. And now I'm really just going to take a moment as we watch the sun peek over the tops of the canopy of the trees in the distance, just to listen to the dawn chorus. This is something that I have definitely missed. It was one thing watching the sunset over the ocean, but there's nothing quite like watching the sun rise over the tops of the trees with all those incredible birds calling in the distance. And speaking of birds, I've seen one sitting up on the top of a dead tree. Can you see it over there, Jean-Dre? That big dead knobthorn?
Yeah.
It looks, we're going to have to try and get a closer look, but I can't quite see what it is just yet. You can just see the silhouette of it, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But that should be an easy one to identify, and I think to start the morning off, let's do a little quiz. So, what bird do you think that is sitting on a dead knobthorn with the sun rising at the back of it? So if you'd like to send your answers through to either hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can send us an email, questions@WildEarth.tv. And I'd love to hear from you, just to see if anybody's awake and actually watching. It'll be a good way to start, and I just can't believe how quickly that sun has come up. And we know once it reaches about halfway in the sky, the rays are really going to be pelting down on us. And it is going to be a scorching day today. And I'm so glad that all of you are enjoying the sunrise. It isn't quite like anything like an African sunrise or an African sunset. It's always quite special. That is incredible. I mean, that was probably only about a minute or two, and now it's come up, and you can slowly start to see those beautiful colors in the sky starting to disappear now. And I'm very thankful for this haze that we've got, and I hope it sticks around for most of the morning. Like I said, I think we're going to be applying sunscreen quite liberally today. And that is it. Now, my plan for this morning is to go and check around Twin Dams and perhaps see if the Queen of Djuma, Karula, the leopardess that patrols this area, has perhaps popped back onto our traverse, or maybe see if there's any sign of Hosanna or Shongile around. That's probably what we're going to do, and if we don't get lucky there, we might sneak across to Cheetah Plains. Now, while we make our way across to Twin Dams, we're not too far now. I know that Jamie is desperately waiting to say hello.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to the spectacular sunrise safari. As you saw with me earlier and with Taylor just briefly, has been a really truly beautiful morning. My name is Jamie. This morning I have Brian on camera with me, and of course Brian always comes along with the thumb. A little bit earlier on, I was half watching my monitor during our pre-show, and I thought that that the thumb hadn't made an appearance this morning. I was utterly devastated. Turns out it was just Brian's other thumb. But there was a brief moment there where I was most concerned. However, as Taylor said, it is going to be a scorching day. I'm embracing this early morning chill. I was going to say in the goosebumps, but they're gone already. It's already too hot for us to have goosebumps. And in fact, it is going to be a very warm day. Mariah and myself are heading all the way to the western boundary of Djuma to go and see whether or not our Nkuhumas, our pride of lions, have decided to return to us once again. We have been bereft of their company. In fact, we've been bereft of quite a few mammals' company, have we not, Brian? There's a mammal. It's very far away, and I think it's a Steenbok. I'm relatively certain it is a Steenbok, and because it's out in the open, I'm stopping very far away, because otherwise it is going to dash off. So there's our first mammal of the morning, a Steenbok at about 5 kilometers away. Not quite. Little male, watching us cautiously. And of course, they are shy animals that love dense vegetation to hide in. So this little one being out in the open means that it's going to be slightly more nervous than it might normally be. Hello, little boy. What have you been up to? I'm sure very grateful that morning has arrived, and that it's now breakfast time, off in search of something to dig up, some roots and shoots to eat. That was appropriately timed. Right, so it has been, I'm not even sure how long it's been since I last saw an elephant. I have not seen a buffalo for so long I've forgotten what they look like. The Nkuhumas have been spending a lot of time on Simbambili. The Queen went south. Luckily, Brent yesterday had quarantined the male leopard and a pair of male cheetah on Cheetah Plains. So our cat streak is continuing, our newly started cat streak. But it does feels very quiet out here, doesn't it, Brian? And that is the inevitability of living in a massive open system in the way that we do. The animals can go where they want, when they want, and apparently where they want is, at the moment, for now, not on Djuma, or at least not on this part of Djuma. I'm going to be overjoyed if we come around the corner and there is a herd of elephants standing feeding. And no one can blame them, of course. After the long, hard, dry season, they're a little bit tired of trees, and there are certain places throughout this reserve where it has rained a little bit more, and there are grasses growing up in beautiful open areas, and that, I think, is where they're all hiding. I'm hoping that's where they're all hiding. You wouldn't think that so many large, several-ton animals could disappear, but they did, overnight. One day they were here, the next they were gone. We don't even see their tracks on the ground anymore. Hopefully we do get lucky and we bump into them. But we're driving right up towards Gowrie Gate, which is the main entrance to the northern Sabi Sand, and forms the sort of the top triangle with Buffelshoek, Simbambili and Djuma. I'm hoping that there will be signs of Nkuhumas crossing. The last time I bumbled up in this direction, we found the Nkuhumas in roughly 2 minutes, which was very convenient. But I did say at the time it was too easy and that we were going to pay for that particular ease of sighting. Oh, and by the way, speaking of the Nkuhumas, I spoke to one of the guides yesterday. He told me, because he could visit the Nkuhumas on Simbambili, he told me that there were 6 cubs. So that will make many of you feel better. There was a brief moment where 2 of the cubs had been separated from the rest of the pride, and looks as though they have been reunited once again. That's good news, that's wonderful news, but of course we'd love to see them for ourselves and to see them happy, all back together once again. That is not a lion track. Okay. I wonder if we take a shortcut, are we going to miss out on being thorough? Possibly. I think perhaps we should not take a shortcut and go all the way to the gate and perhaps ask the lovely people there if they've seen any lions coming through. And this morning I arrived with great excitement. I thought that I'd seen a leopard standing outside of the camp, but it turned out to be just an odd reflection of James's car parked in a different spot. Now there we go. I've started off the morning in an interesting way. So while I search for our lovely lions, I'm sure you're all eager to hear what Taylor's plans are and where she's going.
I was so excited to see yesterday that the Hadeda chicks have hatched. Now, I'm trying to get a view. Here she is, up on the top of her nest. And I'm hoping that we are going to get a glimpse of, well, I don't know if beautiful is the right word to describe the Hadeda chicks. But whatever they may be, whatever you think they may be, maybe they're so ugly that they are cute. But I'd love to see their little heads pop up. Now, I was so lucky this year with finding such a variety of different nests. I must tell you that when I was guiding normally, I often would search and search and search for nests, and I never quite came right. The only ones I seemed to be able to find were either Verreaux's eagle-owled nests on old hammerkorp nests, or I could find weaver nests pretty well, but that's it. So this year was quite interesting for me. It's just amazing the different areas, and I think I was just in the right spot at the right time. But here this female Hadeda Ibis sits, keeping her clutch of chicks nice and warm. Not that I think that she needs to keep them too warm on a day like today. It's quite pleasant at the moment. And perhaps the male is out searching, probing around, looking for a nice earthworm or a grub or a beetle of some sort to come back and feed these chicks. But we'll probably just spend a moment here and see if he does return. And maybe this is even him. It could be the other way around. They will take turns once these little ones have seen as though they've hatched now. And you can see she's moving around a little bit. Or perhaps those little ones, or he is moving around a little bit. Perhaps those little ones are moving around inside the nest. Isn't this just incredible? I remember growing up as a kid, my best friend managed to have she found a Hadeda nest in a tall pine tree in her garden. And I'll never forget that one night we had a sleepover party, and her mom came in the morning, and she had one of these Hadeda chicks that had fallen out the nest. Now, unfortunately, the nest was so high at the top of this pine tree, it was impossible for us to climb up into it and go and put it back. Oh, there it looked like a little head popped up. Was that a head? See if that happens again. So if you just watch sort of between her breast and her beak, every now and then it looked like something was popping up. Maybe it was one of those little chicks. Anyway, so her mom brought in this little Hadeda chick, and they actually raised it. And they fed it sort of mealworms that you could get from the pet shop. And they ground them up and sort of syringed it into the little bird's mouth. And it lived. Can you believe it? Eventually it fledged and went off on its way. And that was my first experience, real experience with a Hadeda. But this is much better, to be able to sit here and watch them grow up. And I hope that they have a bit more luck than those magpie shrikes, that nest that we found on Hyena Road. I hope that they have a little bit more luck than they did. And we've got a couple of visitors here. Oh, there's a little head, you see it? There's a little head popping up. Good morning, little chick. You may also be able to hear the yellow-billed hornbill chatting around just behind me, but it's disappeared behind a tree now, but it's very noisy. Now, I'm not quite sure when these chicks were born, so perhaps you'll be able to help me, or not born, they were hatched. Maybe you can let me know by either hashtagging Safari Live. And remember, I'm also still waiting for answers to the quiz that I had earlier, so maybe you can do a combined post. We were wondering which raptor we saw, or the sort of silhouette of it. You could see a bit of color on it, and I think it was quite an easy one for this morning. But if you could hashtag Safari Live with your answers from the bird quiz and perhaps when these chicks were born. Oh, wonderful. And well done to James, who guessed it correctly this morning and said that it was very specific to a pale morph Wahlberg's eagle. You are indeed 157% correct. Well done to that. It was a fairly easy one, but for those of you who maybe just started watching the show, we love birding out here. All of us do. It's not always about the big animals, but we love the smaller things too, as we were just looking at the Hadeda. So remember to keep keep a bird list, and also note little key identifying features when looking at a bird. So I don't know if you notice, it's got a very fine beak, that Wahlberg's eagle that we were looking at, quite sharp and pointy, and quite a small bird, not very robust, quite slender compared to the rest of the birds. But as you start learning more and more about these African bird species, and you keep looking at the same birds over and over again, eventually it becomes so easy that you could probably identify them with your eyes closed. Probably not too true. Now we're sitting patiently. I'm really hoping that this little one, well, we're going to see all three little heads if I'm not mistaken. That's what I counted in a screenshot that somebody took. Now, Diane, you were wondering at what age will these chicks start to eat sort of solids, so in actual bugs and worms and things, rather than mom or dad regurgitating the insects up? That's a very, very good question that you've asked. Now, they probably start to fledge anywhere between about 30 and 40 days, somewhere around there. I would take it. That's sort of the average time for the larger birds. The smaller birds like the magpie shrikes and things tend to be just less than 20 days. So I'd imagine somewhere around there after about a month, when they're able to move around a little bit more. And then once they fledge completely, they'll hang around with mom and dad as well and sort of forage together. Now, we don't see it too often out here, but back in the cities, you'll often see how gregarious Hadedas are. And something that we used to see, I lived on quite a big property growing up, like a small farm basically, and we used to get masses coming through, especially after my dad had the sprinklers out on the lawn, because it would make the ground nice and soft, and I think the earthworms would come up to the surface, and well, the Hadedas would get straight in there. And often you'd see some younger ones learning how to use those long beaks. Now, we see it with the hornbills as well. Imagine having something so large on the front of your face. You've got to learn. Oh, there's another little chick popping up. you've got to learn how to probe that and where to probe it. And I'm sure that takes quite a bit of practice. So I think that they'll rely on the adults for pulling worms out. And then they will nibble them. And then once they sort of get the hang of their beaks, very much like an elephant uses its trunk and has to train its trunk, it will just keep practicing until it eventually finds something. There was a pair of woodland kingfishers also fluttering around. You could hear them calling quite loudly. Now, looking at that magnificent beak that you can see on the Hadeda faces, Angie was actually wondering, how long is it? Another fantastic question. Now, I'm not too sure. I haven't really read any measurements, but I reckon it's probably just shy of the length of a ruler. So probably somewhere about that long. Maybe it varies slightly with Hadeda to Hadeda. So I'm going to go in centimeters now because I can't do the conversion to inches. My maths is not my strong point at school. I'll get there. So I reckon between, I'd probably say about 15 and 25 centimeters. Like I said, just sort of shy of your ruler. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like anybody's coming back to the nest just yet. Perhaps there's not many grubs or worms around today in the soil. Not every day can be too easy, but at least we got a quick little glimpse of the chicks, which was quite nice. So there we go, another one. That's what I was hoping for. So already a fantastic start, a beautiful sunrise, and now to watch the story unfold of the 3 Hadeda chicks. Now, looking at these beautiful birds and obviously chatting about their beautiful beaks, Carter has actually mentioned that these birds remind him quite a bit about storks. Now, you're wondering if we get storks in this area. Oh, yes, of course we do. Now I'm going to bring out my trusty bird book, which has been with me for the last 5 years, and, well, looks a little bit... or looks like it's been through the wars already. It's got pen all over it as I've been marking my birds that I've seen, but I haven't actually added any to my list for about the last year and a half, so I need to get on that because there's probably a few more. But what I'm gonna do now, Carter, is I'm actually gonna open up onto the stalks. Let's start at page 68. I'm gonna just shovel around quickly because I want to show you some of the impressive birds that we get here. We're very, very lucky. Let's go. Let's just start. I can start with some of the common ones. So, ones that we see occasionally are black storks. Right, we'll start right at the top and we'll work our way down. You can see that. Quite beautiful, quite a bit of white in them and the beautiful red beak. So that's some. And like you can see, similar beak to a Hadeda, except the fact that the storks don't use their bills to probe into the soil, very much like a Hadeda or an African hoopoe or the greenwood hoopoes would do. So some of them will actually scavenge and feed off of carcasses. Some of them will even fish. So they use their beaks slightly different. Now if you go down one level, you can see you get the abdomen stork. I haven't seen any here, but we used to see lots and lots of them in Zambia. We'd see masses of them in and amongst the marabou storks out in the open areas, feeding on the beautiful armored I don't think they're called armored ground crickets or something along those lines. And then if we go down one more, you're very familiar with this one, Carter, keep an eye out because we see them quite often. These are the woolly-necked storks. Very easy to tell. It looks like they've got cotton wool all over the back of their necks, and a medium-sized stork, not one of the biggest. It's much smaller than the black stork. And then if you go down, we've got the white stork on the left, which we occasionally see, but more commonly we see this yellow-billed stork. And well, we get quite a few more, but I won't bore you with the details. It'd be quite a nice idea though to grab yourself a South African bird book. They're really handy, and I think it does help quite a bit when you're going out on safari. As you saw, it's nice to tick them off. The names are all there. There's translated names in different languages. But we're going to continue having a quick look around to see if Karula's come through. And while we do that, I know Miss Patterson was hopefully she's hot on the heels of those Nkuhumas.
Well, your timing is impeccable, although I wouldn't say we're hot on the heels of the lions. In fact, we've had no luck with any lion tracks whatsoever. There's a very interesting mark in the road, though, and I'm going to have to jump out because I'm going to have to try and see exactly what has gone on here. I've seen lots and lots. Yes, sorry, little Dwarf Mongoose. They're shouting at me. I have seen lots and lots of hyena tracks around here. And now I'm trying to work out exactly what caused this drag mark, because this is most definitely a drag mark, and it is a drag mark going that way. But why can't I see any tracks associated with it? Light is awkward. Something scratched about there. Can see it going straight through here. But I can't see any of the tracks of the animals that have done the dragging. There's some tracks here that look like smudged hyena tracks. This is definitely going this way. I wonder what caused this. Very often when we see tracks like this, our first thought is leopard. They'll tend to make a very quick, very sudden kill. They are ambush predators, and they will drag it away. Obviously, sitting and eating right here in the middle of an open stretch of road would be very silly indeed. They run the risk of anything coming through. Lions, hyena, all of the animals out here use our roads as a highway, essentially. They use them as a highway. It's easy for them to walk on. They don't make any noise. It's much like in the same way that we use roads. And so far, all I've found is the track of a white-tailed mongoose. Somehow seems unlikely that whatever caused that massive drag mark in the road, unless it was the most savage white-tailed mongoose on earth. The white-tailed mongoose is about this big. Unless it did some serious dragging, I somehow doubt that it is responsible. I'm going to go with that being a coincidence. So where on earth are the tracks that will tell me whether or not this is going to be something? I think something actually got killed here. No, that's not true. And drag mark comes from here. I'm trying to see if I can smell anything or hear anything. This is very interesting. And luckily, we've just passed the boundary of Arathusa and Simbambili. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do anything about this drag mark. Unless whatever it was dragging, if it's a leopard, unless whatever it was dragging covered its tracks. Because what leopards usually do is they hold their kill between their teeth, and they lift up their heads and they kind of waddle as they drag. There's 2 Francolin. So where's its footprints? Because I don't see, but I do see scuff marks here. So it might have been something heavy. Looks like it could be quite a big animal that was dragged. This has definitely been swept this way. And generally with drag marks, you try and look at little things, little rocks and stones, and try and see which direction they've been displaced in. And all of the little ones, things like this little pebble, this used to rest like that, and it's been shifted by the movement of this, whatever it was. Very interesting. I just want to get a general direction, just so I know where to start looking. Hello, Francolin. Please don't get it right. Through here. Oh! I found it. Drat. We were so close. It was. Right, hold on. Let me just check there isn't a leopard somewhere that I'm going to scare off. Because something killed a scrub hare. So when I said it was a big drag mark, it was in fact not a big drag mark at all. It was a scrub hare, which is still most likely a leopard. Right, let me hop back in the car so I don't run the risk of scaring whichever creature this is away. How did I miss? Brian, what's wrong with us? You've got to be so careful of being too involved with a track in the road. A leopard dragging a scrub hare. Dragging a scrub hare. That makes zero sense to me. Maybe it was a white-tailed. Maybe it was the most savage white-tailed mongoose in the world. The leopard could just pick up a scrub hare. Oh, Franklin, you gave me such a fright. I thought there'd been a leopard there the whole time that I'd missed, and then I was going to be really embarrassed. Okay, let's do some forensic examination of this situation. For those of you with sensitive stomachs, this is quite unpleasant looking. It is a seriously eviscerated ex-scrub hare, minus one head. Doesn't... It's such a strange feeding pattern. Just want to check there isn't... I wonder... This might not have been a leopard at all. In fact, it might have been one of our small cats. And that would explain that peculiar feeding pattern that we're seeing. Because the head's gone, from what I can see. I'm going to jump out. I can't see anything. And then I'm going to get back into the car relatively quickly. I just want to hop out and have a look. If a leopard comes out and shouts at me, well, I suppose that would be wonderful. It's not a leopard. The head's still intact. Entrails are out and skin's been peeled back. I think this was a small cat. That's what I think this was. And I think it's a small cat and that's why it ran away as we drove past. I think that's exactly what happened. Something like a serval or a caracal, a medium-sized cat. The bones aren't properly crunched, the skin's been peeled back rather than plucked and chewed. And I think that there's a good chance that that's why. It's a small cat, it's not strong enough. That's why it dragged a scrub hare. Sorry, Franklin, I'm sorry I'm interrupting your morning. I'm sorry, I've got to go all the way around the back. I think that's the answer to our mystery, and I wonder if it's not worth moving a little distance away, or if this cat's gone for good. Probably a serval, just statistically, because we haven't seen any of the... Go away. Sorry, fly. We haven't seen any caracal. Franklin? Chris, I thought about that as well. I thought perhaps maybe a jackal, and that's entirely possible. It would also explain why the fur has been pulled back, not plucked in a cat-like manner. I'm a bit perplexed. Perhaps those scuff marks were jackal tracks. Check again now with slightly more open eyes. I can't tell you what it was. The tracks are very, very indistinct. Could be a jackal. We might not have the answer. It could well have been a jackal. Just let the Franklin finish their conversation there. I seem to be interrupting them every time I speak. I'm not sure. I have absolutely no idea. It could have been a jackal, could have been a medium-sized cat. I think a jackal is not a bad suggestion. Or it is the most savage white-tailed mongoose we've ever heard of. Which... no, it's not possible. It is not possible that a white-tailed mongoose that is the same size as a scrub hare, it would have been... oh, it's that Franklin again. They're determined to give me false expectations and hope. Not that they're not lovely birds, but they're not really what I'm looking for. And somehow I think of all of our possibilities, it wasn't a Franklin. It most definitely was not this Franklin. Or perhaps that's just what it wants us to think, Brian.
Yeah.
What we didn't know, what the books never told us, is that Franklin are actually savage hunters of scrub hares. which is why whenever they walk past lions, the lions never mess with them because they're actually terrified of them. Lions and leopards. How often do we see francolins walk past big cats and they get ignored? I think that explains everything. It's all tying together, Brian. The francolins swoop down, aerial attack, utilizing their weight and their incredibly clumsy flying style as a weapon, and attacked a scrub hare. Okay. So something small, something that doesn't pluck, but so it very, very well could be a jackal, caught and dragged a scrub hare. Julie, you want to know if I've ever considered perhaps changing professors and becoming a forensic investigator. Funnily enough, Brent and I have been watching a lot of Bones. And I went through a stage when I was about, I don't know, when did CSI start? The original CSI. Must have, I don't know how old I was, in my early teens. I went through a stage of being obsessed with watching CSI. And I used to imagine the plot lines in my head. I just found the science behind it completely fascinating. But no, I think unfortunately I found my calling. However, if Wild Earth doesn't work out for me, if Safari Live doesn't work out for me, then perhaps I have a future in investigating crime scenes. So far I've done a wonderful job. I have no idea who the murderer is. And I actually have walked all over the evidence. So there we go. I might need to work on my forensic skills. I'm not sure. I'm starting to think more and more that jackal is not a bad suggestion. Ruth says that perhaps I should take the Francolin in for investigation. Francolin's in. Well, there you go. Now, see, I shouldn't be a forensic investigator at all, because now I've let the prime suspects go. Well, not suspects, perhaps the prime witnesses. You're right, Ruth. Those Francolin know something that they're not telling us. I should have been firmer with should have pressed them harder. Drat. Knew I missed out on an opportunity. Now tracking them down is going to be next to impossible. Luckily there's lots of Francolin. Okay. The Mapani bees are driving me mad. I'm going to go back a little bit along the road and just sit here for 2 minutes. See if whatever it was doesn't come back. In the meantime, we'll head over to Taylor because, as we know, stakeouts are a little boring.
Well, I've got the start of what could potentially be some really good news. Jean-Andre and I have managed to pick up on some leopard tracks. Now, they've crossed in from the south over Gowrie cut line, sort of just west of a Cheetah cut line, which is quite exciting. Sightly is not a word. And Johan also had said to me a couple of moments ago that last night they had a female leopard crossing from Torchwood, looked like going straight towards Cheetah cut line. So isn't that fantastic news? But before we continue, how beautiful is this male waterbuck with the sun just lighting up his chest? That is quite special, and I'm so happy to see that the animals are in such great condition. They look a lot happier. Ears seem to be perked up a bit more. Just before I went on leave, everything was looking a little bit dismal. Everyone looked tired and really just affected quite badly by the drought. But those bellies are starting to protrude under that thick fur, and the hips have started disappearing, which is fantastic. And I just hope that we keep getting once a week, sort of getting a little downpour, a couple of inches of rain, just to keep that growth coming through at all times. And he's quite happily munching away. And you can see with summer brings the swatting of the tail. Now, I always feel sorry for the poor animals that have lost their tails somehow. They don't have those fly swatters or little midge swatters. And as I say that, he disappears behind a bush wallow. That's okay, because I'd like to continue the search and see if we can keep up on these tracks. They look like nice tracks. So my thinking now is to just do a quick loop. We're probably going to jump onto this next row. And we haven't seen any tracks coming here on Cheetah Cutline. We are probably only not too far from the cut line itself, from Gari cut line. And if I don't pick up on any more tracks on any of these roads, I'm going to get out and go to the last tracks, and well, then hopefully we'll find whoever had left those tracks, we'll find them on foot. So that is my thinking this morning. But we're just going to take it very slowly along here, as I don't want to miss any of the tracks. Driving fast does nobody any good. And we'll just check very, very carefully though as we're going around here, not just our eyes on the ground. And this is probably the most difficult thing about tracking when you don't have a tracker who can focus on footprints that are left on the ground, is that you've got to keep checking up as well. But thank goodness Jeandre's got sharp eyes, so I see he's scanning around like a meerkat looking for hopefully a leopard. He doesn't approve. Don't you approve of being called a meerkat? Doing this. Have you never been referred to as a meerkat before? Many other things. Right, I'm trying to actually think who would be best described as a meerkat on the team. Who do you think? Connor? No. No one. No one is very meerkat-like, but we've got some eagles. Oh no, don't fly away. As I say eagles, one took off, but we've still got one. There it is. Oh, what are you? Now, I can't tell what that is as it disappears, but there's one more sitting back on the tree. Can you see it? There it is. Well spotted. And now that looks relatively large from over here. I wonder if that's not a Tawny Eagle sitting perched up on that tree. Perhaps it was a pair. Yeah, it does look like it, doesn't it? Now I wonder where the other one has gone to. Now, and I like to always just include the new viewers, because I know some of you have been watching for years and years and you hear some of these things all the time. And most likely these Tawny Eagles have just been perched here and probably roosted in this area for the night. But there's also a possibility the Battaliers, the Tawny Eagles, the eagles that are flying at a lower level than the vultures, that they could have perhaps spotted something moving around on the ground like a leopard or a lion, and they'll often sit above them. And they can be indicators to other predators and even other raptors that there's something around. But I am going to go with it. I think that this was their roosting spot from last night. And it's warming up now. The clouds will disappear. They'll catch a few thermals. Now, speaking of all the different types of eagles and birds that we get around in this area, I know Josh, you were wondering if we get any black eagles or Varro's eagles. Unfortunately not. Those beautiful big eagles prefer sort of mountainous areas. They make their nests on the side of cliff faces. Now, you see them in the Drakensberg, so you all know the Drakensberg mountains that we see in the distance. We might get a view of some in a moment. Well, you will see a lot of those eagles around that area. That's sort of one of their favorite spots. So, and it's not too far away from us, so if you're wanting to and you were coming to this area, probably go have a look around there. We just, like I said, we're just taking it easy. We're having a little scratch. No one wants to come and help us follow up on these leopard tracks, which makes me sad, so we'll do it. No. We'll probably jump onto that big animal pathway where the tracks were leading onto. What's happening here? No. Nothing. Here we go. Jeandre, we have a footprint. I'm going to just... You should be able to get something on that side of the road, hey? Yes, okay, I can see. Okay, I'm going to jump out quickly. I'm going to show you a leopard track. Now, I must tell you, Brent was traumatized that I'd come back from Florida without a tan. That was the first thing he said to me. He says, I'm still very pasty. Thanks, Brent. No, I'm just teasing. So no, I didn't get too much of a tan. I found that while I was out in Florida, the weather was beautiful, but the sun wasn't too hot. Now, I need to find a stick. There's a stick. Here's a stick. Okay. we use this grass. Now we'll have a look at this one over here. I'm just double checking something, because some of these tracks are in the sand and they can look a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to put this track down here because the one a little bit further is slightly distorted. But if you look, let me fix my stick. If you look here, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. And if you go to the back of the pad, you go all the way around, you can see the 1, 2, 3 lobes in the back pad. Definitely a leopard has come walking here. If it was a cheetah, we would see the nail tracks just ahead of it and walking straight along the road. So this is fantastic, and it looks like a female just from the size. It's not too broad, it's not too big, quite small and very narrow, whereas a male leopard's track, as you've seen, like a male lion's track, is much broader at the base. So it's going straight, she's going straight down the road. Now we just need to work out exactly where she's walked. So we need to turn the vehicle around. We just check. Yep, the tracks come underneath here. And it looks, I can hear another vehicle. So I do want to just let them know where we are. Jean, did you know what road we're on? Are we on Drakensberg? I'm going to have to check my maps.
This becomes Drakensberg, it's Leadwood.
Leadwood. Just double checking. We are on Leadwood, close to... Right, let's call it in. Maybe we'll get a couple more bites. A bit like fishing sometimes. I've picked up more tracks of this female leopard going in a easterly direction along Leadwood, sort of towards Cheetah cut line again. It's just one following up. Right. Now I'm going to try and stick on these tracks, and I think the best way to do that is to maybe get out and walk. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you, but let's hop back over to Jamie and see if anything's returned to that scrub hare carcass.
Oh, whilst Inspector Taylor goes off in search of the leopard tracks, Inspector Joubert and I have not had any luck with our stakeout. It is a stakeout that I feel as though would have been infinitely improved by the presence of some coffee and donuts. Don't you agree, Brian? Most definitely. I think that our culprit is not going to return to the scene of the crime with us so obviously there. It's very difficult for us to hide away out here. Short of hiding behind the termite mound and popping up with a camera, I don't think that we're going to have any luck staking out that particular kill. So it's a mystery. Brian actually came up with a very good idea. We dismissed it, but it was a very, very good idea initially, and that perhaps our culprit was in fact a bird struggling with the weight of whatever it had caught. It would explain the lack of tracks. We did dismiss it. As Brian pointed out afterwards, he said, well, birds pluck. And it was interesting though. There we go, Lenny is on the same page as Brian and myself, or at least Brian. It was Brian's suggestion. I claim no credit for that very clever idea. Lenny, you wanted to think, well, you wondered whether or not it was an eagle. It would explain the lack of tracks, except there's not really a lack of tracks. It's just that I can't work out what they are because they've scuffed and they've dragged. You know what it could be? You know what it could be? An African wildcat. It would explain my instinct with that scrub hare. My instinct is that it's a cat. The fact that it killed and then dragged under a dense bush to feed off it. My instinct just says to me cat rather than jackal, just because when I've seen jackal with kills, they've got their heads up. They don't tend to drag. And even something I would have thought the size of a serval would probably have been able to pick that up. And so, hey, what wonderful news. I've got happy news for all of us. Distraction has been provided in the form of our lion tracks coming back to Djuma. Hello, lions. Here's their tracks there. There is a beautiful track where... Wait, let me try and... There we go. There is a lioness track coming back towards Djuma. The rest of the pride moved through a little bit further on there. Is this the whole pride? Right, out again, back to investigative work. We have a look and see whether or not we've got the whole pride coming through. Scuff marks, they lay down. Just check that I'm not about to scare them away. Pause. Doesn't necessarily look like the whole pride crossed, but some of them did. Sorry, bear with me one moment. No, that was a scrub hare that crossed there. Perhaps our hapless victim. No, that's a road, not a lion. Goodness gracious, we're having all the luck with tracks today. Cubs. Lionesses. Not as fresh as I was hoping. I have a suspicion we are the first people to drive this road this morning. Okay, let's go find our lions. This is good news. On to Djuma. That was what I was hoping to find. So, you know, they say you shouldn't take on too many cases in one go. But I think we can close the case of the scrub hare as an unexplained death. Not an unexplained, we have a few theories. We just don't have confirmation. Okie dokie, so Taylor's on fresh leopard tracks, I'm on fresh-ish lion tracks. Let's see if we can't catch up with the Nkuhumas. They were very silent last night. I didn't hear any roaring, but the Nkuhumas actually do tend to be quite quiet unless one of the males sparks them off in terms of roaring. The Nkuhumas actually tend to stay quite silent, which makes sense. They've got little cubs they need to look after. They don't necessarily want to draw attention to themselves. Okay, well, let's see if we can at least solve this mystery. I am not ignoring you all. I just don't want to drive over and then miss where the lions have gone from where they crossed. I suppose it's probably too much to ask that we're just going to come around the corner and find them. No, this isn't possible. They should have popped out here. Unless they walked through the vegetation. I mentioned earlier that predators like to use roads, and they do. They are very fond of utilizing roads as a way of moving about. And usually, when they're walking through an area like this, unless there's a nice large elephant path that they can follow, almost invariably they pop out onto a road. So why have they not done so? That is most peculiar. The tracks should have come out here. Actually, they should already have come out. Oh, goodness. Everybody's woken up this morning. Now, I need to concentrate a little bit harder on finding these lions. So let's head across to Taylor to find out how her search is going.
Seems as though Jamie and I are having a tracking morning, and hopefully it will turn into something more than just tracks. Now, we just basically jumped onto Mumba Road, and I'm going to have a quick little look around here. It got quite thick along this drainage, and I didn't see exactly where those tracks went off. But we'll go with that direction that the leopard has come from and the way it's going. So I'm not going to do this entire road. I'm just going to do about half of it, and then I'll turn back and probably go towards Cheetah Cutline again, because those tracks were going slightly more east than they were west, but it's always good just to be sure. And because I'm the only one sort of following up on this leopard at the moment, I want to make sure, and I don't want to have to do too much backtracking, so we'll just check it a little bit further this way, and then if nothing, like I said, we'll turn around and then we'll go back and just double check. But I'm really just taking it very slowly, listening out to hear if I can hear any alarm calls, either of a squirrel or perhaps a bird. And we're also looking for lots of little interesting things along the way, but nothing just yet. And wouldn't it be quite a surprise, or a treat really, to have a leopard on my first drive back? I think that would be quite nice. Okay, I'm going to turn around here. I haven't picked up anything coming this way. The ground's a little bit hard, but there's a couple of nice sandy patches along Mamba. And if this leopard was walking on the road, you would quite easily see its footprints. No, it doesn't look like anything has really happened here. Very quiet. Not even too many Impala tracks, but let's find a gap to reverse. Now, I could have also missed tracks. That's not impossible. We all miss tracks every now and then. So we'll check the other side of the road now to just make sure. Okay. No, let's pick up the pace. We'll carry on. And I'm hoping that Johannes may be checking around that last area where he saw that female leopard, and then hopefully it'll help us a little bit. Because if it is Karula, we're not sure who it could be. I know that she left her little ones around Baboon Pan, so perhaps she was probably just going around checking for them. Now, there's a vulture. Let's see if we can get a view of this vulture that's in the tree. It's just sneaky over there. I don't know if we're going to see it very well. Maybe through that tiny little gap. Forward. Sneaky tree. Wait, we might have another one. You can see it though. It's playing hide and seek with us. No, I think it's getting worse. Let me go back. We won't look at it for too much longer. One more. That's a long branch. That's like the world's longest branch. Get out of our shot. There we go. A very poor view of a white-backed vulture. As you can see, just sitting there quite nicely. Again, probably roosted there for most of the day. Now, I'm trying to do the conversion here. Constantine, you were wondering how many miles a day do we do in one drive. Now, I'm just trying to quickly remember. Let's do that. No, that's not right. I'm doing maths on my phone. So I just tried to do the conversion very quickly on my calculator. Now, Constantine, we do anywhere between about 25 and about 30 miles a day. It depends on what you're looking for. You know, you have to go to certain areas. Like if we wanted to see cheetah, we'd probably go all the way to plains, like you saw yesterday. And then you clock up the miles quite quickly. If you hang around on Djuma, it's not a massive property, and sometimes I'd find I'd just do circuit, and I'd be so lucky that I wouldn't have to really go far at all. I'd do maybe going on. Sorry, Louise. The game drive is going wild. It seems as though a couple more people have woken up and hopefully will give us a hand. There's a couple of gremlins here, but let's go see.
I feel a little bit overwhelmed this morning. What am I looking at here? I think I know exactly what I'm looking at, but I'm going to have to jump out again whilst Taylor searches for both leopards and good signal area. Hold on a moment. Sorry, Brian, I've parked us at a terribly awkward angle, I know. I just want to... So the lions, I found their lion tracks. I missed them earlier. They've gone south, not north, is what I was expecting them to do. Right. Okay. Leopard tracks. But incy-wincy little leopard tracks. Sorry, that was a ridiculous sentence. I apologize for that. This little leopard track is tiny. Really tiny. Have we missed something vital? Shadow has been very, very absent. But surely not, even if she did have a cub. Surely we would have... Maybe it was just the sand that her foot fell in. And what happened here? There's a whole load of scuff marks here. I'm just going to sit here. I think I need more coffee for this morning. I'm not quite sure where to go and what to do. Maybe I've just forgotten how tiny Shadow's tracks are. That, I suppose, is possible, but jeepers, that looks so small. It's the size of my... It's less than the size of my palm. And to give you a comparison, there's this little track here. I know Taylor's shown you leopard tracks. I'm not going to go into massive detail about them. This track just seems to be so much larger here. But maybe it was just the way her foot fell. Maybe she shifted her weight and it just wasn't the full size or the full weight of the track. Shadow's been very mysterious as well. She has... No, I don't think it's possible that she has a cub that we didn't know about. But Shadow has been absent. And I'm saying Shadow, it could be Karula. This is right on the boundary of their territories. But my suspicion is Shadow. Again, I'm sorry. Just bear with me one moment. We've got so many mysteries unfolding this morning that I'm not quite sure where to start. And she's just apparently popped out of nowhere. No, she hasn't. She came down this road. I feel slightly overwhelmed by the amount of things that we have to try and follow. Where's she gone from here? She stepped here, she stepped here. I drove there, so I drove over her track before I saw it. But her general direction, she turned. So what do we do this morning, Brian? I don't know either. Where do we go? What do we do? Who do we follow? We haven't seen Shadow in forever. We haven't spent much time with her. Let me try and mark out the last track. Perhaps our walking team would be so kind as to come and help relieve us of the series of responsibilities that we seem to have acquired. 1 second. Just give me one more second. I just want to check where she went from here. I'm an idiot because I drove over that track, and that would have been so useful to try and figure out which way she's gone. It looks like she's going here and in through this way. Okay, so the lions are going that way, the leopard is going that way. Shadow apparently has one very small foot, because there's definitely no other small track, so that must have just been the way that she put her weight. She must have only just lightly rested that foot, so it didn't make the full, didn't spread to its full size. Whew. This is an awful lot to take in this time of morning. Where to go and what to do. I think I'm going to follow up on those lions, but we're going to come back and we're going to see if we can't follow up on Shadow, and I'm going to just chat to Herbie quickly. Aha, so our walking team is out and about. Let us head over to them so that Brent can tell you what his plans are.
Morning, and welcome to the Bushwalk. My name is Brent Smith. I have Dangerous Dave, the hottest thing on the Cape Town beaches this summer, on camera with me. Now, we're starting to head towards the area where Jamie is. We're hoping that we're going to find those lions or leopard. It seems like there's both in that area. But while we're on our way there, we're going to keep us look out for lots of small, wonderful things. Maybe some plants, flowers, bugs, spiders, scorpions, snakes, everything possible. Remember, this is 100% live, and you can ask us questions about what we're seeing on the Bushwalk. #Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. So we're going to take a shortcut. We're avoiding the roads. We're going straight through the middle of the block, and where Jamie said those lion tracks are is about there, probably about 900 meters away. So we're going to meander through, see if we can get onto those tracks, and hopefully find the incredible Inkahumas this morning on foot. Now, I do love tracking big cats on foot. It does get that adrenaline pumping, blood flowing, keeping the heart healthy. So let's carry on. Oh, this area has been quite busy with its research, where Karula and the two cubs have been, with quite a few different little impala kills. Maybe we can.
Now, we still haven't had very much luck, unfortunately, with these leopard tracks, but we're going to keep persisting. And now we've changed our course slightly. We're now on, I think we're on Central, and we're going to just take a little drive along here. Perhaps I'd like to go and check out the Djuma dam. I haven't seen that in a while, and see what's happening around there, and then we'll zigzag back into the area. If it is Karula's tracks that we have picked up on, well, as Jean-Ray was saying earlier, we know what she's like, and she absolutely loves to zigzag on everything but a road. We see that when we try and follow her. So it can be quite difficult, of course, but we'll just see what else we can find. And something else that I've noticed since I've been away is that they have done some repairing of the roads, which is quite nice. So these roads are nice and smooth and very sandy, which makes it quite easy for us to see lots of lovely footprints. And if I see any interesting ones on this road, I'm definitely going to show you. It's beautiful. Actually, I'll keep a very close eye out for some nice tracks. And, well, I'd like to actually have a look at some more impala lambs this morning, rather than just seeing them very early, quite briefly. But I'd like to actually look at them with some nice light and see if they bounce around for us. Goodness, it seemed to have been very quiet around here last night. Not too much going on. Where are all the animals at, Chandra? All that seems to be around is the woodland kingfish. I can hear one calling in the tree. But where are you? There it is. Oh, that was an easy. As I said that, there. Did you see it just fly away? I don't know if you noticed, there was a faint figure that flew to the bottom right of the screen. I suspect it's now gone. Well, that was a very quick view of a woodland kingfisher. We'll get one eventually, but I know that they've been abundant at the moment, and I'm sure you've been seeing lots and lots of them. Maybe I wasn't even on Central. No, let's go here. We'll just drive around until I jump onto a road that I recognize. No, because I've got footprints. Yay! Okay, let's check. Let's see who we've got here. I'm going to jump out again because I want to have a closer inspection. No, I'm not going anywhere because bungee line, because my earpiece was still attached. Right, let's have a look here. See, some of these, like I said, some of these tracks don't do us any justice when they're in the sand because they splay quite wide out. But this is good. Here we go. Back on the money again. We've got a track going straight down the road. Isn't that fantastic? Now, that was just a quick look. I don't want to waste too much time on the ground, but let's keep going. Let's try to keep these tracks in sight and see if we can pick up on them. I need to check where we are again. So we go trusty GPS, and that's the hardest thing when you're coming back to work, especially on new properties, that you tend to forget where you are quite often. It'll take me another month or so before I remember the roads when I come back from Lee. Okay, Drakensberg Central. Fantastic! Right, now I'm going to try and keep these tracks and make sure I don't lose them again, but for now they seem to be going straight along the road, which is fantastic. So I apologize if I don't pay you too much attention, but I do want to find this leopard for all of you, and I'm sure that you'll be quite excited if we can get one of those. There's another track, there's another one. You can see them going all the way along the road, which is perfect. It's quite difficult, but basically where my hand is, they're just going straight up on top of tracks from last night. So let me just turn that off. You can see another one over there, and that's good. There they are, and I reckon that's from probably last night sometime. So we could be a little bit behind these footprints. So let's not dawdle for too much longer. Okay. Like I said, it's not just about looking down on the ground, obviously, though it helps, and it's easier when you're walking. In the vehicle it can be a little bit difficult because you've got to scan up in the trees and along the ground, on the termite mounds. So I hope you're doing the same thing, and then of course make sure that we're still going in the right direction. Well, we're lucky so far. It's fantastic because every time I keep thinking we've just lost them, get onto a road and then they pop back up again. Now she likes this area. Whoa, mongoose! We're going to see some little dwarf mongoose. I'm just going to pull off the road, and I can still see, or if it is Karula's tracks, I can still see them on the ground. Don't run away, mongoose. I'm going to just stop just over here. There they are. Good morning. Family of dwarf mongoose, who are scratching away, obviously looking for some termites in this mound. And there's quite a few little heads around. No sun for them to warm up this morning though. It's not too chilly, so I think that they would have been full of energy and ready to go. Hearing those babblers calling in the distance, just keeping an eye out, making sure they aren't shouting for something. And they are very vigilant little creatures. Very good eyesight. And it's proving quite difficult to compete with the birds this morning, though their voices sound a lot better than mine. But I love these little critters. They are so funny, especially when they do sort of forage through the leaves like chickens, you know, scratching around looking for anything to eat, any beetles or grubs, any scorpions that are perhaps under the bark. And well, with the rains that we have had, I'm sure they'll be making use of all the termites that are around. But you can see them, they don't stop, constantly on the move. There it is, scratching through the leaves, double checking each other, making sure that one of the family members perhaps didn't miss something. There we go. See that one sort of starts digging. Oh, it looked like it got something. I wonder what it found. Now we're watching these little mongoose as they scurry around, and you can see that they are quite happy to be out here first thing in the morning. Now good morning to Ian and Kira. Now you're wondering, are these animals more active during the morning or the evening? Now, mongoose in particular, and it depends on what type of mongoose, but the dwarf mongoose, which is the ones that we are watching at the moment, they will wake up just as the first light appears. They'll probably groom themselves a little bit, strengthen the bond between the members of the group, sort of say hello to each other, groom themselves, groom each other, and well then, if it's a cold winter's day, they'll need to warm themselves up. But now in summer, they don't need to do that, they just carry on with their day. But you get other species of mongoose, like the white-tailed mongoose, which is a nocturnal species. So during the day, they spend their days sleeping, and at night, they come out under the cover of darkness. They're a little bit more shy than what the dwarf mongoose are, and then they will go around and look for things to eat. And it's amazing how this happens, how you get nocturnal species of animals and you get diurnal species of animals. Because most of these things, especially these little critters, are all feeding on the same thing. They're feeding on beetles and larvae and scorpions. And it's nice that they take a sort of time to rest as well, because it then gives the other species that will come out at a different time of the day an opportunity to look for the same sort of food type, but not in direct competition with each other. So I think that that's quite nice how nature has worked itself out like that, providing opportunities for different species to feed at different times of the day. Can you see the little yellow butterfly in the background as well, just behind its head? That's a beautiful butterfly. Now we're looking at this lovely little yellow butterfly. Now I know Brent is quite good at butterflies. I'm not sure what that one is. It looks too big to be a broad banded yellow, or broad bordered yellow, sorry. So I'll have to ask Brent, or I'll have to have a look at my butterfly book. I actually have one with me, but we'll check that a bit later. Now, Michael from Canada, it was a very long question, I apologize. I really did have butterfly syndrome, and as the butterfly did actually catch my attention this time, it wasn't something else. Now, you were wondering if the youngsters and I'm going to listen to the question quickly. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Louise. Sorry about that. My concentration span, I've got to work on that. So Michael, you were wondering if the adults and the youngsters feed the same same sort of food source. And if I'm downward, can I smell if these dwarf mongoose smell like berries? Now that is fantastic, because I didn't know that they supposedly smelt like berries. This is new information to me. But sadly, there is very little wind at the moment. It's deathly still out here, which is actually, it's quite nice. I think a bit later it would be nice for a breeze though. Now, so I'll have to get back to you that one over the next week. I'll try and get downwind of some mongoose and have a smell. Chandra, have you ever smelt mongoose before? Chandra never either, so this is a new thing for us. We'll have to have a look. Now, when it comes to the types of food that these little critters are feeding on, they're very, very much eating lots of little things, as we watch this one watching us and hasn't moved at all. So they'll eat earthworms and scorpions, and you often see those little ones coming out and foraging and learning with the adults from a very, very young age. This is so funny. This reminds me, and I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a hyrax before, or a dussie as we commonly call them in South Africa. But this little mongoose, the way it's sort of perched itself and it's sort of all scrunched up and just staring at us, its posture reminds me very much of a hyrax. And they're funny little things. That's something that I quite miss seeing, is that you don't really see too many dussies around here. Not really any big rocks and things for them to sit on. They like the cliff faces. Hello, little one. Lovely pink nose and your red eyes. And just making sure, keeping a close eye on us. It doesn't seem to be a particularly big family. I could only count 4 of them. The others are now disappearing into the distance. Now, Eric from Dallas, you were wondering what is the collective noun for a group of mongoose. You were wondering if it was a troop or a horde. Now, I must tell you, the most wonderful thing about collective nouns is that you can give them your own one if you wanted to. You know, one person was obviously a little bit creative. I haven't actually heard of a collective noun for mongoose before, have you? A business. That's a good one. Genre says a business of mongoose, and I quite enjoy that. That's quite nice. That was something that I used to do when I first started guiding, as I always used to look at the different ones. But perhaps, maybe, we can find something else that suits them a little bit better. A scurry of mongoose. I don't know what that they just very. It has to do, like Jean-Andre said, a business of mongoose is quite nice. It's got to be something that describes how quickly they sort of move, and they're sort of how they're quite social. So maybe you think of something good. So if you have thought of anything clever that we could maybe use and give them a different type of collective noun, a more suitable one, you're welcome to hashtag Safari Live with what you think would be a good one, or you can even email us questions@WildEarth.tv. Right, now we're going to head across to Jamie, who's got a roller on a wire.
A roller on a wire, and one that many of you, who perhaps you might have missed out on the opportunity on previous drives, for whom this might be, if not the first, then at least the first of the season. So it is a European roller, back once again. I saw them about 2 weeks ago, but this is the first time I've managed to get one on camera. So whilst I might not have had any success with lions, leopards, or the mystery of the death of the scrub hare, we have managed to put a European roller on camera. It is most unfortunate that it is sitting on a power line, but that is what our birds love to do, especially the rollers and especially the kingfishers. They love to sit up there. It's the perfect vantage point. They don't have to worry about leaves getting in their way. It's nice and secure, nice and open. So it makes total sense that they would be quite happy to utilize it. Look at the way that tail's acting to balance this bird. It's constantly moving up and down. Just those nuances of balance. Hop. And there we go. Not the most... Well, they are beautiful in their own way, especially when the light starts to touch them. But definitely not as beautiful as, say, the lilac-breasted or in my opinion, the broad-billed roller. But they are still a welcome sight. All that we're missing now, I believe, is the carmine bee-eaters. Not rollers, but the carmine bee-eaters, to add to our summer collection of different birds. And it's almost like a treasure hunt each and every single summer to wait for the return of our various migratory species. Okay, so the lions haven't come out. They've come in here and they've walked along, but they don't seem to have come out on the road off to my right, which is Zoe's road. And I just want to check, because it wouldn't be the first time that this has happened. I just want to check that they haven't pulled a sneaky one and gone back onto Arathusa. They're wild animals, and whilst they usually, when they're walking in a line, they generally go in that direction, they could have seen something, they could have chased something, they could have decided, actually, we forgot to have a drink, and gone back towards Arathusa. So I want to just check again that they haven't crossed over there. Yeah. That was an interesting sound. Rusty? Rusty, don't do this to me, please. Steph's going to kill me. We didn't do anything crazy. We've been... I'm actually... Phew! That was very odd. Really odd. Oops, I better remember what I'm meant to be doing, which is checking for tracks. That was so peculiar. Okay. Well, we best report that at some point, although I'm not quite sure what I report. Rusty made a strange sound and then refused to start. And then started fine. Oh well, morning confusions. Let's go find these lions. I'm much better with them. It looks as though perhaps the walk team might help to take a load off our minds, or at least a load off our shoulders, in terms of helping us try and track down Shadow. I'm almost certain that it is Shadow. I think that there's a very good chance it is her. She's been hiding out to the south of our boundary, which is the property to my left, which is Hoffman's, and up to the north in this block around the Gowrie repeater, which is within our traverse area. And for those of you that are perhaps new to these live safaris, Shadow is a female leopard. She is the daughter of Queen Karula and 10 years old. She must be 10 now. Yeah, she must be 10. She's 10 years old, and she's had very much in contrast to her mom. She's had a very, very sad life story. She just hasn't been all that successful in terms of raising cubs. So it would be an absolute joy to see her, because she really has been largely absent. She has been largely absent from our lives. But the joy, of course, of these live safaris is that we get to follow these animals for months and years. For those of you that perhaps have not heard, or perhaps you're new to these safaris, we have very exciting news. In terms of following our animal characters, you will be able to follow them for 8 weeks on live television on Nat.Geo Wild if you are in the States, and that will be starting on the 1st of January on Nat.Geo Wild only, and that will be for, as I said, 8 weeks, which is a really, really exciting turn of affairs. It's exciting for all of us, and of course it's exciting in spreading the awareness of these incredible animals, because I think that the more people can actually, rather than a once-off, not that the once-offs are not very exciting, but rather than a once-off exposure, people can actually tune in each and every single week and get an update on what is happening with the characters and the animals that they saw in the last week's safari. So exciting news happening for Safari Live. I hope you're all very excited. We are. We most definitely are. We, of course, now have to find them. Our hyenas have been around, just not on Djuma, walking their regular patrol route. I'm not going to stop for the hyena tracks. I feel as though we've done tracking ad nauseum this morning. Let me just keep trying to find you things while we track. Unfortunately though, it seems as though the mammals are all in hiding. Luckily though, sometimes what you don't see from the vehicle, you can see on walk. I think we should head over to Brent to find out what he's up to and what he has to say.
Well, welcome to the bushwalk. We've done about 1.5 kilometers since you last saw us. We're trying to second guess where the Nkuhuma Pride was moving to. Now, Jamie had the last tracks probably over there. We've got no tracks coming this way. So we're going to start moving maybe a little bit further to the west from here. See if they're not in some of these thickets here. Now, I'm just utilizing a nice, a really big termite mine. Let's hope Dave doesn't fall down as he climbs up to me. Oh, put your four-wheel drive on, David. There we go. So we've got a really impressive view from up here. And we're able to look into the bush. All I saw was a Steenbok, unfortunately. But also, while I'm up here, I'm listening for alarm calls. I'm smelling to see if I can smell a fresh carcass. And so far, no luck, but you know that's why we've got a track. We've got to keep following. But I did notice quite a cool little plant while I was up here. Well, they grow all over the place. Well, there's a leaf that someone has picked already. Oopsie, sorry, Dave. Yeah, it's quite leathery, thick skin. This one's obviously been picked, so it's lost quite a bit of moisture already, but and you see when we strip it, still holding lots of moisture. Now, it is a succulent plant. It's got quite the interesting name. Dave, do you know what this plant is called? I don't. It is called a mother-in-law's tongue, because it's quite... I'm not going to say any more, I'll stop right there. But it can be a quite important plant for a lot of animals and for human beings. Now, as you can see how well it strips, as I was doing, you can strip it to make rope. It's really strong as well. And you got to get it sort of, if you strip in the right. See, if you try to go across, it's impossible. But if you strip lengthways with the fibers, you can strip it quite finely and you can make quite an effective rope out of it. Now, I don't want to dig out one of these mother-in-law's tongue. They take quite a long time to grow. But if I was to dig out this mother-in-law's tongue, the root is quite a big white fleshy substance. Well, maybe see if we can show it to you. I'm starting there. So that white fleshy substance. Now if we were to dig that out, you could probably squeeze a quarter of a cup of water out of it. So, and you can drink it straight away. It's quite a good source of moisture if you don't have any, and far better than drinking out of an elephant dropping, if you can find them. Now they're not that common in this area, so we do have to look quite carefully, and that's another reason why I don't want to dig the poor plant out. Now, oh, look at this. It's amazing when you just stop to look a little bit more closely at things. Oh, thorny, thorny, thorny. But you see under that leaf there, look at that. It's a butterfly or moth eggs over there. Sorry. There we go, look at that. So that's butterfly or moth eggs laid on the underside of this, whoopsie, spike thorn. I can't see whether they're hatched yet. Doesn't look like it. I'm trying to remember what species of butterfly feeds off the spike thorns. I can't remember now. It could be, I'm sure there's quite a few species. I think some of the blues do, Joker as well. Sorry, I thought I heard something there, but I think it's a car in the distance, not the growl of a lion. Okay, Dave, you feeling brave?
Oh yeah.
Now, you'll see how steep this is as we go down. It's probably about 10-12 feet high. Okay, let's carry on. I would suggest going sideways, Dave. Otherwise you'll fall on your nose. Here we go. Now, as you can see why we use a termite mound, if you look around me from this height, I'm looking right into the bush. I can't see down. I wouldn't be able to see if a lion was sleeping underneath anything. Car. The rattle of a car over corrugations. So we're just going to slowly move towards the west. Hi, Rebecca. Rebecca says they also get the mother-in-law's tongue succulent in Florida. Indeed you do. It's become a common garden plant all over the world, but it is indigenous to Africa originally. So you got a little bit of South Africa growing in your garden in Florida, Rebecca. Also, you must always keep a lookout for vervet monkeys in Florida. The same monkey species we get here were introduced into Florida, Barbados, quite a lot of the Caribbean islands, Texas. And in Florida, one of the most damaging invasive species in Florida occurs in your waterways, and it's the same catfish we get here. Now they are gluttons and survivors and can walk between drying patches of water and they have played havoc on the indigenous Floridan, is that right? Floridan fish species. Now, not only the sharp-toothed catfish, Florida's got quite a few problems with exotics. Snakehead catfish as well from the east, peacock bass from South America. Now, so we're going to move slowly towards the next big termite mound, get another big high ground. This is quite a thick area, so you'll notice I'm stepping quite carefully.